12th Man Podcast. Let's talk sports. Dub. The 12th Man Podcast.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. This is Coach Dub coming to you live from beautiful College Station, Texas, with your 12th Man Podcast, Year 4, Week 2. And this episode of your 12 Man Podcast is brought to you proudly by Aggie Land Cycling, an award-winning full-service bike shop located in College Station, Texas. As the oldest local shop, we have helped to keep Brazos Valley residents and Texas A&M students alike rolling for nearly 40 years. We have everything you need, from a selection of new bikes, used bikes, parts and accessories, and knowledge of local cycling. Open 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. A mechanic is always on duty to get you back on the road or for your routine maintenance. Drop-off and pickup service is also available for those who can't make it into the shop. Whatever your skill level or riding style, we're happy to help you get on a bike. Hope to see you out on the trails, the pavement, the gravel, or wherever two wheels take you in life. Aggie Land Cycling. All right, we're going to jump in and go back to week 1 and do a score recap. Starting in the ACC, number 15 Ole Miss versus their FCS opponent, 61-7. Georgia versus their FCS opponent, 66-3. Georgia Tech versus Arkansas State, 51-35, and what was a little bit of a close one, closer than they would have liked. Let's take a look at the stats on the game. Georgia Tech put up 550 yards of offense, 183 rushing yards, and 1 rushing touchdown. They also added 367 passing yards through the air and 5 passing touchdowns. But their defense gave up a whopping 469 total yards to the Arkansas State Red Wolves, who averaged 8.5 yards a play, which is more than the Yellow Jackets' 7.6 yards a play. 413 of those were passing yards through the air for Arkansas State. Looking at some notable players on the game, Georgia Tech quarterback Clarence Minner had 26 of 36 for 72%, 360 passing yards, 5 passing touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. The leading rusher on the day is Elijah Pierce, 14 carries, 87 yards, and a rushing touchdown. Leading receiver on the day, John Iwachukwa. He had 9 receptions, 147 yards, but no interceptions. Coming in behind him, Ethan Barber, the tight end, had 7 receptions for 126 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns on the day. Defensively, the leading tackler on the day was Jalewis Solomon, the cornerback, who had 8 tackles. Behind him, Cortez Sowles, the free safety, had 7 tackles and 1 tackle for loss, and also added a sack and 2 pass breakups. Now we jump down to the next game. Pittsburgh over East Carolina, 42-24. Number 14, Pittsburgh, put up 377 total yards of offense, 114 on the ground with 2 rushing touchdowns. They threw for 263 through the air and 3 passing touchdowns. Their defense was pretty firm on the day, only allowing 13 first downs for East Carolina and a total of 283 yards. 38 on the ground and 321 through the air. Notable performances: Anthony Barner, the quarterback for Pitt, went 14-27, 51%, 263 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and also 3 interceptions. Leading rusher on the day, Alfonso Brand, 22 carries, 141 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. He had 4 20-plus yard runs on the day and 4 broken tackles and averaged 6.4 yards a carry. Your leading receiver, tight end Greg Board, had 6 receptions, 115 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And defensively on the day, leading the team in tackles, Cameron Lindsay had 10 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, and 1.5 sacks. Coming in behind him, strong safety Duke McMillan had 7 tackles and 1 tackle for loss for Pitt. Good showing by Pitt Panthers in their first game of the season. Now we're going to jump down. Number 5, Clemson, hosting Troy at home, 48-0. It was a dog-walking experience for the Troy Trojans as they left Death Valley feeling like they don't know what's going on in their life. Clemson put up 565 total yards of offense with 33 first downs. They had 252 rushing yards, 4 rushing touchdowns, and they added 313 passing yards through the air with 2 passing touchdowns. And the defense was tough as they held Troy to 4 first downs on the day, only 113 total yards of offense, 28 rushing yards, and only 85 passing yards. Notable performances on the day for Clemson. The quarterback went 21-23 for 91%. He had 271 passing yards and 2 passing touchdowns on the day with no interceptions. The leading rusher on the day, David Ezio Muma, had 12 carries, 123 rushing yards, and 1 touchdown. Leading receiver for Clemson on the day was Floyd Michelle, who had 5 receptions, 89 receiving yards, and 1 touchdown. Defensively for the Tigers, DeMarcus Calhoun, the linebacker, had 7 tackles and 2 tackles for loss, and also added a sack for good measure on the day. Good showing by Clemson in their 48-0 victory over Troy. Arizona State versus their FCS opponent also blanked their team 56-0. They put up 462 total yards of offense, 170 yards on the ground with 2 rushing touchdowns, added 292 passing yards and 6 passing touchdowns. Leading passer on the day, Duncan Grant, the quarterback, went 12 of 16 for 75%, threw for 275 passing yards, 6 touchdowns, but he also had 2 interceptions. Leading rusher on the day, Tyrone Hammer, 26 carries, 93 yards, 1 touchdown, but he only averaged 3.6 yards a carry. Backup running back Brian Lopes had 6 carries for 91 rushing yards and a touchdown, and he had a 15.2 yard average per carry on the day. They didn't have a lot of receivers. Best receiver on the day is going to be Denzel Chubb, who had 2 receptions for 78 yards and a touchdown. The leading tackler for the day, linebacker Frederick Shakir, 4 tackles. Not a very good defensive showing on the day for Arizona State. Now we're going to jump over to the Big 12. Auburn outlast Appalachian State 23-21. Auburn had 22 first downs, 402 total yards of offense. They had 107 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown, added 295 passing yards and 2 passing touchdowns on the day. Their defense held Appalachian State to 304 total yards of offense, 10 yards on the ground for a 0.6 yard average. Their run defense was amazing on the day, but they did give up 294 passing yards. Going to look at Auburn right now. They had 2 different quarterbacks that played on the day. Brandon Chambers went 14-18 for 77%, 133 yards, 1 touchdown. He's going to be your best quarterback on the day. Leading rusher on the day, Bryce Stingley had 6 carries, 47 yards, and a touchdown. Leading receiver on the day is going to be Joel Babineau, who had 5 receptions and 82 yards. Defensively for the Tigers, your leading tackler is going to be Eric Winters, a strong safety, who had 7 tackles and 1 tackle for loss, and also added a pass breakup on the day. Now we're going to jump down to Baylor. Baylor 24-7 over North Texas. Baylor put up 354 total yards of offense, 137 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, 217 passing yards, and 1 passing touchdown. Baylor's quarterback Cliff Honeywell went 20-29 for 68%, 217 passing yards, and 1 passing touchdown. Your rushing leader for Baylor Bears on the day was Joseph Dodds, who had 19 carries, 88 rushing yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns, averaging 4.6 yards a carry. Leading receiver for the Bears, Dalton McMillan, had 6 receptions, 88 receiving yards. Defensively for the Bears, nobody stands out. Several guys were your leading tacklers. Jamarcus Ryder with 3 tackles on the day, your senior redshirt from Aledo, Texas. Now we're going to jump down to number 13, Texas A&M at Louisville. The Aggies pull it out 56-20, but at halftime it was only 21-13, and the Aggies struggled early and often in this game to find footing. But they put up 658 yards of total offense, 286 rushing yards, 5 rushing touchdowns. They also added 372 passing yards with 3 passing touchdowns. But they allowed 408 yards of offense against Louisville. Louisville had 93 rushing yards on the day and 315 passing yards versus the Aggies. Notable Aggie performances, Haas Hedgney went 19-24 for 79%, had 372 passing yards and 3 passing touchdowns. He also added 6 carries for 55 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns, both of which came on short yardage in the red zone. Your leading rusher on the day, Tyshawn King, had 14 carries, 101 rushing yards, but no touchdowns. Backup running back Derek McFall had 9 carries for 71 yards and a touchdown, and third-string running back Bo Jackson had 5 carries for 59 yards and 2 touchdowns. Leading receiver on the day is going to be Tyshawn King with 5 receptions for 127 receiving yards and 1 receiving touchdown. Coming in number 2, Isaiah Williams had 4 receptions for 81 yards. Defensively for the Aggies on the day, your leading tacklers are going to be Kevin Levy and Jordan Pride, who both had 11 tackles respectively. Now we're going to jump over to the Big Ten. Penn State dog walks their FCS opponent 77-3. They put up 687 yards of total offense, 280 rushing yards of 5 rushing touchdowns, and threw for another 407 yards to the air and another 5 passing touchdowns. On the day, Penn State quarterback Bryce Baker was 15 and 19 for 78%. He added 4 passing touchdowns, 1 interception, 337 passing yards. Your leading rusher on the day is also the quarterback Bryce Baker, who had 11 carries, 114 rushing yards, and 3 more touchdowns on the ground. Behind him, Rashad Khaled had 16 carries, 108 yards, and 1 rushing touchdown. Leading receiver on the day is going to be Julian McFadden, who had 4 receptions, 122 yards, and 1 touchdown. Not to be outdone was Devin Colroma, who had 5 receptions, 105 receiving yards, and a touchdown. And defensively, for the Nittany Lions, your leading tackler is going to be free safety Keegan Miles, who had 7 tackles and 1 tackle for loss on the day. The Washington Huskies, facing their FCS opponent, blew them out 69-7 in amazing fashion as they put up 672 yards of total offense, 494 rushing yards, 8 rushing touchdowns, but they only threw for 178 yards through the air with no passing touchdowns. Washington went through 2 different quarterbacks. Micah Tulafono went 4-4 for 100% and 89 yards. James McCauley went 6-9 for 66% and 89 yards. Neither one threw for a touchdown on the day. Leading rusher is going to be 9 carries, 316 rushing yards, and 6 touchdowns, but he also had a fumble, Jordan Washington. Leading receiver on the day, the tight end, LaShawn Lawrence, had 5 receptions and 78 receiving yards. Defensively for Washington, your leading tackler is going to be Asa Mai and Jonathan Epperson Jr., who had 5 tackles apiece. Epperson also added 3 tackles for loss and 1.5 sacks. Moving on, number 7, Notre Dame versus Michigan. Notre Dame outlasted Michigan in the Big House 42-39 on a late pick six, 99 yards to the house in the fourth quarter. Notre Dame put up 467 total yards of offense, 234 rushing yards with 1 rushing touchdown. They added 233 passing yards and 3 passing touchdowns on the day. The story of the tape, though, Notre Dame outlasted Michigan, going 1 of 8 on third down conversions for only 12%, while Michigan was 8 of 11 for 72%. Notre Dame, for the rest of the season, is going to have to shore up their third down defense. They also gave up 516 yards to the Michigan Wolverines, who had 81 rushing yards on the day and 435 passing yards through the air. Looking at some notable Fighting Irish on the day, Matt Zollers, the quarterback, went 22 of 33 for 66%. He had 233 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, but 4 interceptions. Thank God they weren't costly, and the Irish were praying in the stands. Leading rusher on the day is going to be Kedron Young, who had 10 carries and 94 yards, but no touchdowns. Backup running back Jahil Hageman had 9 carries, 66 rushing yards, and a touchdown. Leading receiver on the day, tight end Jack Larson, had 8 receptions, 87 receiving yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns. Defensively for the Irish, your leading tackler, Jason Helton, the strong safety, had 12 tackles and 1 tackle for loss. USC had their FCS opponent, and they blew them out 75-14. USC put up 631 yards of total offense, 178 rushing yards, 4 rushing touchdowns. They threw for 453 passing yards and 7 passing touchdowns. Yes, I did say 7 passing touchdowns on the day. Backup quarterback Christian Winthrop came in, went 11 of 15 for 73%, threw for 168 passing yards and 4 passing touchdowns. Leading rusher on the day is going to be Trey Lanier. 7 carries, 67 yards, and no touchdowns. Your leading receiver on the day, tight end Joey Olson. 6 receptions and 83 yards and 3 receiving touchdowns. Defensively, for the USC Trojans, your leading tackler is going to be Kaylavon Durham, the linebacker, who had 7 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, and half a sack on the day. Moving along, on down to the SEC. This is a big one, folks. Number 11, UCF hosting Oklahoma. They outlast the Sooners 41-38. Everything about this game screamed even, except for the first downs. But I want you to look at the score. Oklahoma 14, UCF 7 after 1. UCF 21, Oklahoma 17 at the half. 35-31 after the third. And they tied 38 all after the fourth quarter to take it to overtime, where UCF has the walk-off field goal for the win. 464 total yards for UCF, 449 for Oklahoma. Oklahoma ran for 166 yards and 2 touchdowns, while UCF ran for 177 yards and 2 touchdowns. UCF threw for 287 passing yards through the air and 3 passing touchdowns, while Oklahoma threw for 283 passing yards through the air and 2 passing touchdowns. Oklahoma was 6 of 12 on third down conversions for 50%. UCF was 4 of 8 on third down for 50%. Looking at some player stats, Oklahoma quarterback went 32 of 39 for 82%, 283 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Rushing on the day, Al Carter of Oklahoma went 15 carries, 106 yards, and a rushing touchdown. Leading receiver for the Sooners, Elijah Thomas had 8 receptions, 75 yards, but no touchdowns. Also with 7 catches and 78 yards and a touchdown was J. Caden Ferguson. Defensively, for Oklahoma, the leading tackler on the day was Jarrett Williams, but Aaron Livingston was the one who had the best day with 4 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, and added half a sack on the day. Also, Hardy Gibson, the cornerback, had an interception for 104 interception return yards, 1 pass deflection, and that defensive touchdown on that 104-yard interception return. Now we look real quick at the UCF. UCF quarterback Adam Ford went 16 of 26 for 61%, 287 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, but 2 interceptions. Leading rusher on the day for them was Tavion Swint, who had 12 carries, 171 yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns, averaging 14.3 yards on the ground on the day. Your leading receiver for UCF is going to be Eric Stark, 4 receptions, 127 receiving yards, and 1 touchdown. Leading the day defensively was Eric Culp, the cornerback, who had 9 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, and an interception. And joining him was cornerback Melvin Ware, who also had 9 tackles and 1 tackle for loss on the day. Moving along. Alabama at Oklahoma State, 70-21. Alabama put it on Oklahoma State in Oklahoma. I can't think of where. Off the top of my head, I should know it. Stillwater. Alabama, the Roll Tide, rolls into Stillwater and rolls Oklahoma State 70-21. Alabama had 542 yards of total offense, 175 rushing yards with 4 rushing touchdowns. They also added 367 passing yards through the air with 4 passing touchdowns, while holding the Oklahoma State Cowboys to 290 yards on the day. Alabama quarterback Keelan Russell went 26-29 for 89% for 318 passing yards and 3 passing touchdowns. Leading rusher on the day, Ack Deer, had 10 carries, 74 yards, and 3 rushing touchdowns. Your leading receiver on the day, tight end Caleb Edwards, 5 receptions, 105 yards. I don't know if you folks have noticed, but there's been a lot of tight ends this week that led their teams in receiving. Defensively for the Roll Tide, leading tackler was Jibian Bali and Xavier Hamilton, who both had 5 tackles. Bali had 1 tackle for loss, while Hamilton added 2 tackles for loss on the day. Now we get down to our last game. Texas rolls Kentucky at home, 49-0. Texas struggled a little bit last week, but they found their footing this week as they put up 567 yards of total offense, 84 rushing yards for 1 rushing touchdown, 483 passing yards, and 6 passing touchdowns, while their defense held strong and held Kentucky to 162 total yards on the day. Not to mention that, but Kentucky, 9 attempts on third down, converted 0 on the day. Third down defense for the Longhorns was outstanding. Trent Roseman, the freshman quarterback, 27-38 for 71%, 298 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns, and 1 passing interception on the day. Better showing for both the Texas quarterbacks today. Your leading rusher for the Longhorns, Christian Clark, had 9 carries, 84 rushing yards, and no touchdowns. Your leading receiver on the day is going to be Jordan Washington, the tight end, who had 7 receptions, 126 receiving yards, and 1 receiving touchdown. But I'm going to go back right quick. McCutcheon had 4 receptions, 133 yards for a touchdown. And Joe Clinton had 10 receptions, 108 yards, and a touchdown. Texas had 3 receivers on the day with over 100 yards receiving. Defensively on the day, Javier Littlejohn, the linebacker, led the team in tackles on the day with 6. That's what we got for our breakdown this week on the last week's scores. We're going to jump into a little bit of a Heisman update right now. Your leading Heisman candidate is Notre Dame running back Kedron Young. Behind him, Jaron Kiowe Sagapolotueli at USC quarterback. Coming in behind him in third place is Ole Miss quarterback Tavian St. Clair, Gecko Baker of TCU, and I'm going to tell you right now, this has not changed since week 0. So we're going to scrap that and keep moving on. Scores and schedules this week that we're in right now. In the ACC, number 5 Clemson at Tennessee. Should be a good game there. Number 12 Georgia at number 15 Ole Miss. That should be another good game. Keep a lookout on that one. We're going to jump over. Texas A&M has FCS. Baylor has FCS. Auburn has FCS. In the Big Ten, UCLA at home versus Hawaii. Penn State is on the road at Michigan State. Ohio State at home versus FCS. Michigan at home versus FCS. Then we jump down to the SEC. Number 11, UCF has their FCS opponent at home. Number 25, LSU on the road at Vanderbilt. And your game of the week, number 10, Texas at number 9, Miami. Arkansas has their FCS opponent at home. And another good game, the one to watch out for, number 2, Florida host the Oklahoma Sooners at number 16 in the Swamp. That'll be another good matchup. All right, folks, now that we got all that out of the way, we're going to do our offensive players and defensive players of the week. Going to have a top 3, not by conferences, just overall. I picked 3 offensive and 3 defensive players of the week. On the offensive side of the ball, number 3, Washington running back Jordan Washington, who had 9 carries, 316 rushing yards, 6 rushing touchdowns, averaged 35.1 yards a carry. He also added 1 reception for 13 yards on the day. Number 2, Oregon quarterback Julian Lewis, 17 of 26 for 65%, 473 passing yards, 6 passing touchdowns, 1 interception. He also added 3 carries, 21 rushing yards, and a rushing touchdown. And your number 1 offensive player of the week for week 1, Penn State quarterback Bryce Baker. He went 15 of 19, 78%, 337 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns with the 1 interception, but he had 11 carries for 114 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns as the Nittany Lions roll and roll on. Now for your defensive players of the week, number 3, Texas A&M cornerback Kevin Levy, a.k.a. the Hulk, all 6 foot, 204 pounds of it. Had 11 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, and 1 pass breakup. Number 2, UCF cornerback Earl Culp, who had 9 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, and 1 interception on the day. And your number 1 defensive performance of the week, Pittsburgh linebacker Cameron Lindsey, who had 10 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, and added 1.5 sacks for good measure. Those are your offensive and defensive players of the week, your score breakdowns, your games of the week. And until next time, this is Coach Dub signing off.